Welcome to this video series about improvising by Sietze de Vries. You can support this video series by donating the amount of your choice to Sietze de Vries' Patreon account, which can be found by searching Sietze de Vries Patreon or by finding the link in the description below the video. Enjoy the video.
Alright, let's do the second video about improvising on the organ. And like I told in the first video, everyone is capable of improvising, but it really is important how you start. And that's why I offer this course, so to speak, not only for people that want to learn how to improvise, but also how do you teach small children to do it. Well, last time we spoke about how you start, and that's actually by singing some nice songs. That can be children's songs, it can be hymns from church. And of course that's what I did in earlier days. For Bach it was easy. Every child knew like 50 church hymns probably that he could use to teach them organ playing. So we started with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and apart from playing the melody, of course, on a keyboard, which is quite easy for any child to learn, the next step is to use triads to harmonize it, and we started with the 1-4-5 system, meaning the triad of C with all the inversions, the triad of F with all the inversions, and the triad of G with all the inversions. And once you can do that, and every child from, let's say, 6-7 years old can learn that, then you can actually harmonize a little song. The right hand is playing the triad with the melody on top. The left hand is playing the 3 bass notes, meaning the root of the triad. So you end up with a little song like this. And remember, no substitute fingering, just think of the note you're playing, think of the triad you're playing, and you just move your fingers to the right position. The next step we can take is actually, taking advantage of all the possibilities that an organ has. So I have 2 manuals here, I have a pedal board here, and there's nothing greater for a child even when you can reach the pedals. Well, let's use them, why not? It's easy. So what you can already do from the beginning is that you play the tune, but instead of playing the left hand, the 3 notes, you play them in the pedal. That's already great fun. But let's take it one step further. Since we have 2 manuals, you can solo out the melody on a different manual. So let's have a nice sound in the second manual to solo out. And of course this already gives you an opportunity as well to tell little children about different stops and how you can use them and how they mix and what kind of sound they produce. That's actually a very important part of improvising. By playing and by trying, you really get to explore the sound of an organ. So after a while you get very comfortable sitting at a strange organ, and in 5 minutes you know exactly what you can do with that instrument, because it's part of what you do when you play, when you listen, when you improvise. Alright, so we have a solo stop on the second manual. That means melody is in the right hand, the left hand is playing the 2 leftover notes from the triad. And this is important, make sure the triad stays as close as possible. So when I have the C here, the other 2 notes, G and E, are right here. And when I have the G here, I have the C and the E here. So exactly the same as what we started with, but now it's divided over 2 hands and 2 manuals. Why is this important? Because this way you have total control over what you do. And that's kind of my keyword when I teach improvisation. The more control you have, the better it gets. And that makes sense. I made a comparison in the first video with language. And imagine you want to say something in a certain language. So I'm talking in the English language to you now, and that's not my native language. But because I know quite some words, my vocabulary is okay, so I can actually explain what I mean, I can speak my mind. But the more, the better your whole vocabulary and your knowledge of the language is, the grammar and everything, the more free you can speak. So you don't have to search for words anymore, you can just speak your mind. And that explains why it is actually, it sounds like a contradiction, but it is exactly what it is. The more control you have, the more free you can be. So that's why I'm very strict in the beginning to do things exactly the right way, that you can control every detail, and that enables us later to be more free and do whatever you like. So, solo in the right hand, the other two notes in the left hand, and in the pedal we have now the three bass notes C, F and G. So here we go. And maybe you noticed, for me it's a very natural feeling to use my longest fingers in the right hand to play the melody, which is actually old fingering when you think about it. And normally that feels very strange when you study very old Renaissance music and suddenly you have to use your hands in a different way and you don't use your thumbs that much, and it feels strange. But actually this is a very natural feeling when you play like this. You just play a melody and the longest fingers are really suited to do that, and it feels normal. So actually old fingering is already part of starting with organ playing. And of course most of us are trained in a way that you learn legato playing from the beginning. It's still from the 19th century that we have all these methods, these books that train us to play complete legato, to have finger substitutions. You don't need it in the beginning. That's only for later when you start playing romantic music. And then it's actually natural to add it to your technique. In the beginning you want to have it as clear as possible. And that's why it's really no problem when a child just plays like this. That's completely fine. That's actually old fingering. Well, I was talking about the different stops and how you can use them. Of course, you can explore an organ that way. On this organ I have a wonderful 4-foot principle in the facade and a nasat 1.5 foot that you can use an octave down to play a beautiful solo together with the tremulant. And then you have a wonderful solo sound. So even with small children you can practice things like that, how to use an organ in a creative way. So now my left hand is still here on the normal pitch, and the right hand is playing an octave down, and then you can do the same thing. That's also part of learning how to improvise, that you are more agile, so to speak, in using an organ, that you can play like this or this in different ways. It really doesn't matter because you think from sound, from understanding, and not just score reading. Well, the next step could be that we solo out with the left hand. And that of course means that we need a stronger sound in the left hand with the melody. That also means that now the triad is on top of the melody. So the C in the melody, then we have E and G on top. If I have the G in the melody, then we have C and E on top. And the pedal stays the same, you just play the 3 bass notes, C, F and G. So we end up with this. And when you think about it, of course there is a third way of playing it, because we can solo out the right hand, the left hand, but you can also solo out the pedal, play the melody with your feet. And that's actually a very interesting way of playing, because it shows you how the brain works. A lot of the things we do, especially when you are already a professional or at least a trained organist, a lot of the things you do are on muscle memory. Your fingers just know how to grab certain chords. Now you can't do it anymore, because you're playing in a way that you normally don't do. The melody is in the pedal, and suddenly you really have to control and to think of everything you do. So that means the melody is in the pedal. And by the way, that shows you how the pedal was used in earlier days. We often think that the pedal is basically to play bass notes, so 32 foot, 16 foot stops, those are very important. But of course, when you look at a North German organ, a Baroque organ like the famous Schnitger organs, you always have 4 foot stops and 2 foot stops and sometimes even 1 foot stops in the pedal to solo out melodies. So, and in the Netherlands we have old Renaissance organs that only have, for example, a trumpet 8 foot in the pedal, which you can use underneath the sound, but you can also play wonderfully a solo in the pedal. That's actually how most pedals started in the Netherlands, with only a solo stop, so that you can play very long melodies in a slow tempo, and then you had 2 hands completely free to play beautiful counterpoint against the melody in the pedal. So we have the quintadena 4 foot in the pedal, an 8 foot flute in the manuals, so that means the left hand is playing again the 1, 4, 5. The triad is in the right hand, and to practice it first, you can actually start the same way as we did in the very beginning, but you just play along in the pedal, the melody that is. And you'll see that already feels kind of special, that you really have to think very hard to make it happen the right way. But then actually the next step is to leave out the melody in the right hand. So only the 2 leftover notes from the triad are in the right hand. And that's really hard in the beginning, because you have to rethink your whole system in your brain, what hand and what feet is playing what note. So the sound result is still exactly the same, but the way of playing is completely different. So this is really good exercise to practice this. So let's see what happens now. And like I said in the first video, don't use the same melody all the time, but this is of course a melody that everyone knows. So it's already in your system, you don't have to think about it anymore, but try to make a collection of nice melodies that you can use with this 1, 4, 5 system. A lot of the beautiful hymns from the German tradition, from the Lutheran tradition, are really suited for that. So lots of possibilities to do that, and try it in different keys. So once you can play something in C major, it's actually also very easy to play it in F major, in G major, because the system stays exactly the same. That also shows you a big failure, I think, in our way of educating music. We think that sharps and flats and playing in different keys make things more complicated. And of course that's not true. For children it really doesn't matter if you use white keys or black keys. I mean, they are as easy to press as the other one. It's not difficult at all. So it really doesn't matter, but because of the reading we think that lots of sharps and flats make life a lot harder. But to play, of course, it really doesn't matter at all. Well, just for fun, to have a final way of playing this little tune of ours, for the people that already can play the chords quite easily, you can also play it with double pedal. That sounds very impressive, but there's actually nothing to it. You just use both feet. The right foot is playing the melody. Left foot is playing the 3 bass notes. So you can practice that first, and then it actually doesn't matter anymore what you play in the hands as long as you stick to the right triad. So you can just double the triad in whatever way you want, and if you are a bit creative and you already know something about Baroque music, you can add some little melodies, some ornaments, and suddenly you have a very impressive way of playing a very simple hymn tune. And it's great fun to try it on an organ, especially when it's a big organ and you have lots of stops. It sounds very impressive. And of course that's a very important part of teaching children how to play the organ. They should have fun with the instrument. So not just exercises on one stop, but try to really explore the entire instrument, that they have this feeling of awe in what this huge instrument can do. That's really great fun, and they will definitely like it. So for closures for the second lesson, let's end with double pedal Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.